program, and so you can't get them from somewhere else. You have to train them in your department with your procedures, with your equipment, to get the best and safest product available on the streets.
Yeah, and I don't know if I agree with that, but I'm not the chief. So you have to answer that, Mr. President. One other thing, though, Mr. Perry, you mentioned that things had to happen, and Station 2, it sounded like, would have to close down because of construction. Is that true? Or that there would be no service available?
I'm sorry, Mr. President, Councilor Garduno.
When you talked about constructing Station 2, does that mean that services for that area would not exist? Because they don't. Then they exist now, don't they?
Not at that location as it relates to that type of coverage area. You know, there are services there, but what Station 2? But
there is coverage.
Well,
let's hope.
There's gaps in service, and it's not the type of fire protection services as it relates to ladder coverage, paramedics, and I think maybe heavy rescue. Chief, maybe you could answer this.
Mr. President, Councilor Garduno, it is my job as fire chief to go out and evaluate our service delivery system, and that's why we went forward with the Ladder 7 idea to move forward to cover that service gap. And the same thing existed when we had the opportunity to rebuild Fire Station 2 to move it in a better strategic location so we could better deliver our services, decrease our response times, and expand the services in that area. Now, we are meeting our response times, but we can improve that by putting the station in a more or a better strategic location. That's all we're trying to do. We're constantly trying to improve the services that we deliver, and that's why we're here to discuss these issues, because we brought them forward.
And I, appreciate your situation, but I still think that the Ladder 4 west side, Ladder 7, is absolutely crucial. And I don't know what we need to do, and I offered a while ago whatever it is that we need to do on this end to make that happen.
So, Chief, when I asked you before about a lateral, you said like about 12 weeks. But how does that work in terms of hiring laterals? Because now you're almost saying you don't do it, but...
Well, Mr. President, what we'd have to do is identify through the hiring process the key skill sets that we would need to shorten the cadet program to bring them online faster. That program, we haven't done a lateral class, I think, in probably 4 or 5 years. So the course would have to be evaluated and redeveloped, and you're looking at weeks and months of work by the staff who are currently training other firefighters. It's not practical right now to do that. The most practical fix, if you're looking for solutions, would be to hire a cadet class. We will have June retirements. Hire a cadet class that would not only fill the 15 positions, but would address the retirements that are going to occur at the end of June, and you can put that truck in service at the beginning of FY13. If you're looking for the earliest opportunity to do it, that would be it.
Okay, but a lateral cadet class is possible. It's just you don't think it's not something you'd prefer to do.
Not necessarily. No, a lateral cadet class is a practical, functional thing to do. We have had better results with putting them through the entire program. I'm sure I could get people to testify to that effect as well. We have a great cadet program, and it turns out some really good firefighters, as I think everyone would agree. And we can do a lateral class, but it would take some program development and some time to make that happen. And I think the earliest opportunity is going to be hire these firefighters in February. They graduate in June. You could put them in service July at the earliest.
Okay, Councilor Lewis, do you have a? Oh, Councilor Benton, sorry.
I think Councilor O'Malley's frustration about the schedule is something I share, and I know that the negotiations with UNM were difficult, and we finally got an agreement, at least a draft of an agreement, because I think I agree that there's some holes in it. I think Mr. Thompson is going to quickly prepare some suggestions as to the language that needs to be adjusted in that agreement to meet the concerns of Councilor O'Malley. but UNM was a player in this that we did not control. I would like to, I mean, I want to emphasize the importance of Station 2, Councilor Garduno. It's not just about Ladder 7. Station 2 has inadequate facilities for the emergency unit. It's just a one-bay old station. And it's something that I've been working on now for, seems like eternity. But now that we're at least close, apparently close on the UNM agreement, if we can hash out those details, I guess my next question would be, a question for the sponsors is that what, based on what I'm hearing, we're going to go hustling for finding funds to complete the shortfall on the 2 stations. What are we really gaining other than 6 months of the additional 15 hires when the stations won't be complete until the end of calendar year 2012? I mean, what are we really gaining here? That's a question for the sponsors.
Thank you, Mr. President. What we are gaining is based on the recommendation by the chief that stated that we have a gap in services on Albuquerque's west side. And he stated the issue has not been addressed for 10 years. Well, there's a need for it, and if there's a need for it, we should abide by what the chief of the fire department is saying, that we need to get a ladder truck on Albuquerque's west side.
So how will those 15 positions being ready, being funded 6 months sooner,
Well, I think there's
fill
always,
that gap if the facilities aren't in place?
Councilor Benton, there's always the possibility. I mean, we talk about retirees. We don't have that official number on how many individuals are going to leave the fire department. If 15 firefighters choose to stay, and they may stay because of this economy and the cost of health insurance, then we can get it done and, basically implement the recommendations of Chief Bream. And I would hope that would be the case. I mean, he is the one that has addressed to us that we have a gap in service and we need to address this issue. This memo was sent out to each and every firefighter in the city of Albuquerque. I mean, there's a problem. I'm glad he identified the problem along with some of the unions in this community. I think this is something that needs to be addressed and needs to be addressed now. If we can keep those 15 firefighters on, then we can deal with this issue today and not have to wait until 2013.
And Mr. President, Chief, you're saying the earliest we could do a cadet class is February. Is that cadet class funded yet? That's not. My assumption is it's not funded, right?
Mr. President, Councilor Lewis, attrition classes are not funded.
Okay.
And they run, a 15-person class would run about $250,000. The department just absorbs that expense.
This would clearly, I think, what we need to do here, and this appropriation could fund that class and the next one, probably. And like I said, we don't know how many we're gonna hire during that time. The appropriation was specifically for the latter half of latter half of FY11, is that right? For January through June.
Of 12, right.
So it would seem like if this we pass this bill like it is, and we know that it's going to fund the very next cadet class in February. And again, we don't know how many, but it'll cover a good portion of it, and so which is exactly what this amount of money was appropriated for. It was to cover these expenses starting in January, and so it would seem like it would fit and make sense to me. And councilors, I'd recommend that we pass this bill as is, and we specifically know that we can begin to fund the next available cadet class, which would be in February.
Go ahead.
So, Chief, so we passed this bill, and the money's going to be available. And what you're saying is the next class is going to be available that you're going to be able to put through would be February. Where are those cadets going to go then? They're not going to 7 because it's not going to be complete, right? So where are they going?
Mr. President, Councilor Winter, in that scenario, there's bay space available at Fire Station 17, Sequoia, and Coors, and that would put a ladder in a better strategic location than we currently have. And that's an option.
Mr. President.
And what are we going to do with
What are we going to do with Station 2 and Station 7 that need the extra money to finish the project? Are we going to just cut a bayout? Or are we going to try to find money from someplace else?
Mr. President, Councilor Winter, it's imperative that we finish those two projects and fully fund them. And I know we have several options in front of us, and that's what needs to be decided tonight.
Thank you, Chief. Councilor Lewis, and then I have something I want to say, I think.
And we did speak of some alternatives to the specific administration was speaking of the two needs at 2 and 7. I think it was clear that there were some, we have the time and certainly have the ability to look for other appropriations and funding sources for that. But this is doing exactly, I think the Chief just explained exactly what he wanted to do with this money back in May, which was, again, allow for us to be able to hire these firefighters and keep the resources to Station 17, which is on the west side, which fills that gap between now and when Ladder 7 is complete. So this would be doing exactly what I believe the Chief intended to do and what this bill intends for it to do.
Thanks. And I talked to Councilor Winter offline a little bit, and I'm wondering, and I'm not sure if this suggests to make anybody happy, but one thing that we could consider doing is deferring this for 2 weeks, and then taking, putting 15 extra people in the cadet class in February, and then freeing up about $300,000 for those projects. Because if we just dump this money into firefighters and you can't hire them, then that doesn't really help. But if we, and then this Councilor Benton might be, I know he wants to talk about this, but that might be some way of kind of, perhaps we can work this out. And I am concerned, it does have the appearance of, for lack of a better word, gamesmanship about how the schedule worked. And I don't think that's really healthy in relationships. But Councilor Benton, go ahead.
Well, I actually think that we could afford that 2-week deferral, and I'd really like to hear what John comes up with in the meantime. I'd feel a whole lot more comfortable if I knew what the sources were for completing the fire station construction than just saying, well, we're going to look into it. When I hear MRA, I get concerned because I've got a lot of MRA needs in my district.
Okay, so is there a motion? I'll second that. There's a motion and second for a 2-week deferral on R-236. All those in favor, please say yes. 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 All those opposed? No. Okay. All those in favor, please say yes and raise your hand. Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 4, right? All those opposed? No. 1, 2. That fails on a 4 to 5 vote. Okay. Okay, go ahead. Who wants to go next in terms of, there's a motion on the floor, and I think there's a floor substitute. You want to bring, no one has a floor substitute? Okay, there's a motion on the floor for the bill. I think, I don't think there are any amendments or anything else. So Councilor Lewis, Councilor Sanchez.
I will close by just saying I urge your support.
There's been a motion and a second of a do pass on R-236, appropriating and adjusting funds for the operating of government in the City of Albuquerque for fiscal year 2012. All those in favor, please say yes and raise your hand. Yes. Yes. All those opposed? No. So that passes on an 8-to-1 vote, correct? Okay.